fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, oh fuck you, fuck you, fuck you,
Feminism, the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. Today, it means a lot of different things to different people. But if we go back to its origins in the late 18th century, it's primarily a social movement for the emancipation of women. The history of feminism can be divided into three waves, which all occurred periodically throughout our history. The movement was slow to start off, and it wasn't until the late 1880s that the term feminism actually appeared. Before then, the more usual term was women's rights. The first advocates for women's rights were for the most part lonely voices pleading against obvious and manifest inequities in society's treatment of women. Within the women's movement, there was growing criticism about the predominance of white Western heterosexual women and their concerns, and this affected the writing of women's history. Greater attention was paid to the differences between women, including race, ethnicity, class, and sexual orientation. After Sojourner Truth's Ain't I a Woman speech to the American feminists, women of other races proposed to alternative feminism. It took more than a century of struggle to achieve full voting rights for all women, regardless of age, race, or marital status. Before women's rights, women did not have full rights over their own bodies, which meant they had no legal protection against sexual violence, and women were discriminated against in the workplace. And this not only meant women were paid less than men for the same work, but it also restricted them from applying for certain jobs. It gave them no promotion and made no allowance for maternity leave. They also fought for rights including bodily integrity and autonomy, abortion rights, reproductive rights, and many more. But surprisingly, many of these problems still persist today. Feminists have argued that the power of relationship between men and women is just as important as that between social classes and understanding social change. The early 19th century examined how the unconscious entered politics and how the understanding of self and sexual identity changed our understanding of class. But let's turn our attention to the issues that I see going on within the third wave of feminism, which extends from the 1990s to currently. Feminism has altered predominant perspectives in a wide range of areas within Western society, ranging from culture to law. However, recently I've noticed that feminism has also been used as an excuse by non-feminists and those alike to promote sexualization and objectification of women. Sexualization. It means to make something sexual in character or quality, or to become aware of sexuality, especially in relation to men and women. There are several components to sexualization, and these set it apart from healthy sexuality. Sexualization occurs when a person's value comes only from his or her sexual appeal or behavior to the exclusion of other characteristics. A person is held to a standard that equates physical attractiveness with being sexy. A person is sexually objectified, that is, made into a thing for other sexual use rather than seen as a person with the capacity for independent action and decision-making, and/or sexuality is inappropriately imposed upon a person. Every media form study provides ample evidence of the sexualization of women, including television, music videos, music lyrics, movies, magazines, sports media, video games, the internet, and advertising. Some studies have examined forms of media that are especially popular with children and adolescents, such as video games and teen-focused magazines. Although extensive analysis documenting the sexualization of women in particular have yet to be conducted, individual examples can easily be found. For example, the Skechers Naughty and Nice ad that featured Christina Aguilera dressed as a schoolgirl in pigtails with her shirt unbuttoned, liking a pencil, and dolls like Bratz dolls, who are dressed in sexualized clothing such as miniskirts and fishnet stockings. In Abercrombie's children's clothing, there were thongs sized for 7 to 10-year-olds, some printed with slogans such as wink wink, and in television programs, there was a show in which young girls were dressed as adult models in lingerie. Research documenting the pervasiveness and influence of such products and portrayal is sorely needed. We're in an era of female celebs like Nicki Minaj, Miley Cyrus, Cardi B, Iggy Azalea, City Girls, and Kim Kardashian, which all promote the same sexualized messages of girls using their bodies for objectification. In self-objectification, girls internalize an observer's perspective on their physical selves and learn to treat themselves as objects to be looked at and evaluated for their appearance. So basically, girls learn to treat themselves as objects of others' desires. Both male and female peers have been found to contribute to the sexualization of girls. Girls by policing each other to ensure conformance with standards of thinness and sexiness, and boys do it by sexually objectifying and harassing girls. On the most destructive form of sexualization, girls can be lured into sexual abuse, assault, prostitute, or traffic girls by their parents, peers, teachers, and strangers. Numerous studies have documented the presence of self-objectification in women more than men. Other studies also documented this phenomenon in adolescent and pre-adolescent girls. But there are many consequences of sexualization of girls that no one seems to be talking about. Ample evidence indicates that sexualization has negative effects in a variety of domains, and most of the studies have been conducted on women in late adolescence. However, findings are likely to generalize younger adolescent girls who may be even more strongly affected because their sense of self is still being formed. Consequences of the cognitive domain says, thinking about the body and comparing it to sexualized cultural ideas disrupts mental capacity. The emotional domain says, sexualization and objectification undermine confidence and discomfort with one's own body, leading to a host of negative emotional consequences such as shame, anxiety, and even self-disgust. Research links sexualization with three of the most common mental health problems of girls and women, such as eating disorders, low self-esteem, and depression. Now, don't get it twisted. Sexuality and sexual well-being is an important part of a healthy development and overall well-being. Yet, evidence suggests that the sexualization of girls has negative consequences in terms of girls' ability to develop healthy sexuality. And surprising but unsurprisingly, self-objectification has been linked directly with diminished sexual health among adolescent girls. For example, decreased condom usage and diminished sexual assertiveness. Frequent exposure to narrow ideals of attractiveness is associated with unrealistic and/or negative expectations concerning sexuality. Also, frequent exposure to media images to sexualize girls and women affect how girls conceptualize femininity and sexuality. Girls and young women who are more frequently consumed or engaged with mainstream media content offer stronger endorsement of sexual stereotypes that depict women as sexual objects. It can also have a negative impact on other groups such as boys, men, and adult women, and on society more broadly. Exposure to narrow ideas of female attractiveness may make it difficult for some men to find an acceptable partner or to fully enjoy intimacy with a female partner. And adult women may suffer by trying to conform to a younger and younger standard of ideal female beauty. So what can we do about this? Well, because the media are important sources of sexualizing images, the development and implementation of school-based media literacy programs could be key in combating the importance of sexualization. There is an urgent need to teach critical skills in viewing and consuming media, focusing specifically on the sexualization of women and girls. And what I personally have to say about this is, well, this isn't feminism.
The inspiration behind it was feminism. You know, this reflects the woman body. You got your little boobies, the JJ, and if you see my back, it's like booty.
And this is where many people get confused because feminism has to do with sexuality and equality, but focusing on sexuality by itself is what turns it into sexualizing. Many of us are under the impression of feminism having to do with the female body and the aspect of being a female, but really it has to do with what you can do as a female and your capabilities.
That was Millie with the Spilly. Please like and subscribe for more content.